The emergency lights pulsed a dull red through the metallic corridors of Outpost Theta 7. A synthetic haze of fried circuits lingered in the air, thick with the scent of melting polymer and desperation. The ration synthesizer, once the crew's mechanical messiah, sat silent, its interface black and cold. Sergeant Alyssa Granger crouched beside the broken machine, chewing a piece of dried alien meat she'd roasted herself over a hand-made fire pit. Every crunch echoed like a gunshot in the dead-quiet mess hall. "That's a native life form," Nix whispered, eyes wide and pupils vertical. His amphibian skin shimmered with stress. "That's not safe." Alyssa shrugged and tore off another bite. "Probably isn't. But neither is starving." Across the room, Praxer Ven stood stiff-backed, hands locked behind his back in a textbook Gyrotal authority stance. "Consuming unknown biological matter violates Concord Regulation 57A, he said, his voice metallic and precise, like a warning from a worn-out AI. Alyssa raised her eyes to him. "So does dying from starvation. Just slower." The 12 crew members, various species from across the galactic Concord, sat in silent judgment, thin, pale, and trembling. Most hadn't eaten a full meal in 3 days. The solar storm that fried their comms relay had also crippled the resupply beacon. No one knew when, or if, a rescue ship would arrive. The jungle outside shimmered with life, but to the Concord-trained scientists inside, it might as well have been a pit of acid. "I ran tests," Alyssa said. "It's edible. Protein-rich. No toxins. I'm still breathing, aren't I?" "That is not the standard for mission safety," Praxer snapped. "No," she agreed. "It's the standard for survival." Silence. Not a single rebuttal. Just the wheeze of the failing filtration system and the slow creak of someone shifting in their seat, too weak to get up. Zira, the team's medic, broke the quiet. "Sergeant, if you're correct." "I am." "Then perhaps you can show us your method?" "We can confirm using medical scans." Alyssa nodded. "I'll lead a group out tomorrow morning. Nothing risky. Just edible samples, close to camp." Praxer moved between them like a wall. "There will be no unauthorized foraging. You are not in command here." Alyssa stood. The skewer in her hand dropped into the fire. Her eyes met his, flat and calm. "I'm not looking to command. I'm looking to keep people breathing. If that goes against your regulations, you can court-martial me after we're all rescued." Praxer's jaw tightened, his 4 nostril slits flaring with indignation. "You jeopardize this entire mission with your recklessness." "No," she said. "I'm saving it." Later that night, Alyssa stood outside the compound wall, just beyond the sensor grid. The jungle buzzed, alien insects thrumming in high frequency, distant animal cries that sounded too sharp to be natural. She scanned the foliage, took notes, and tagged several leaf samples into her pouch. Footsteps crunched behind her. "You shouldn't be alone out here," said Zira, her voice soft but clear. Her skin, a gray-blue smooth surface, shimmered under the planet's twin moons. "I'm alone because the people who should be helping are arguing over policy manuals," Alyssa replied without turning. Zira exhaled slowly. "He's not wrong about protocols. But he's also not adapting. And we're down to a half-day's worth of rations. Which means we'll be starving by nightfall tomorrow." A moment passed. "You really tested it? That thing you ate?" Zira asked. "Roasted over open flame. Waited an hour. No cramps. No vomiting. No hallucinations. My heart rate held steady. Body didn't reject it." "You sound confident." "I'm not. But confidence doesn't keep you alive. Thinking does." Zira looked back toward the compound. Nix wants to help you tomorrow. He's scared, but curious. Praxer will be furious. Let him be, Alyssa said. The jungle doesn't care who's in charge. By morning, Nix waited by the airlock with a datapad and oversized goggles slipping off his flat head. You ready to get your claws dirty? Alyssa asked. I don't have claws, Nix replied nervously. But yes. I think. Good enough. They moved into the outer ridge of the jungle, Alyssa taking point with a machete-like blade she'd hammered together from spare equipment. Vines as thick as a forearm dangled from massive, groaning trees. Bioluminescent spores pulsed in the shadows. Alyssa pointed to a low shrub with red speckled leaves. That's the one I sampled last night, she said. Boil it for 20 minutes. Water turns orange. Nutrient-rich. Slightly bitter. Nix tapped his pad. Structure resembles Terran spinach, but the stem compound includes trace alkaloids. Exactly. Safe in small quantities. Think of it as alien kale. Nix chuckled, his first real laugh in days. They gathered 6 samples and made it back before midday. As they returned, a commotion stirred near the med bay. An alien crew member, Drala, lay convulsing. Her skin had turned translucent, revealing twitching veins. What happened? Alyssa barked. She wandered into the jungle, someone stammered. Ate a cluster of yellow fruit, said she couldn't wait anymore. Zero was already applying pressure to Drala's chest, but her biomonitor beeped erratically. Alyssa dug into her pouch. I've seen this before. Those yellow bulbs leak neurotoxin. Fast-acting. But there's a counter compound in the bark of the fireleaf trees. She crushed a small stick, soaked it in clean water, and forced the bitter liquid into Drala's mouth. Seconds passed. Then her seizures stopped. Her breathing steadied. Everyone stared. Even Praxer. Fireleaf, Alyssa said quietly. You learn fast when the jungle doesn't give second chances. That evening, the mess hall was silent again. Not from fear, this time from thought. The skewer sat untouched by the fire. Alyssa didn't eat. She didn't need to prove anything anymore. Praxer entered, his posture still perfect, but his eyes, uncertain. You broke protocol, he said again. I saved her life. He nodded once. We will speak further tomorrow. For now, continue your observations. It wasn't permission. But it wasn't a stop order either. Alyssa looked out the porthole window. The jungle pulsed under moonlight, waiting. She whispered, now we hunt smart. Morning on Sarin Delta 4 came with dense mist and a sky the color of bruised metal. The jungle beyond the outpost walls hissed with life, damp leaves shimmering with dew and motion. Alyssa Granger laced her boots tight, checked the edge on her makeshift machete, and scanned the perimeter. Nix waited by the gate, clutching his datapad like it was a shield. His wide eyes followed every sound from the trees. Zira stood nearby with a med kit slung over her shoulder, expression unreadable. You don't have to come, Alyssa said without looking at them. Zira replied first. That's exactly why I should. Nix gave a nervous smile. I need new data. The ones I have are theoretical. Starving is not. Alyssa keyed in the airlock override. We'll follow the stream east. Stick close. Don't touch anything unless I tell you. The jungle swallowed them fast. Towering stalks with translucent leaves bent under their passing. Bright, alien birds flitted through the canopy, singing in impossible harmonies. The forest was alive and indifferent. Alyssa stopped near a cluster of thick roots winding around a glowing blue mushroom. That's a spore burst. Pretty, but deadly. Step around. Nix jotted notes furiously, snapping images. What triggers it? Pressure. Vibration. Dumb curiosity. Zira scanned a vine overhead. This one's pulsing. Heartbeat vine. Wraps around warm targets and constricts. Avoid. They pressed deeper. Alyssa moved with the ease of experience, always a step ahead. Zira watched everything, calculating, while Nix lagged behind, overwhelmed by the flood of stimuli. After an hour, they reached a clearing where the trees thinned around a mossy rise. A small animal, a rodent-sized, six-legged thing, skittered across the stones. There's our breakfast, Alyssa whispered. Nix blinked. That? Get ready to learn something useful. She dropped to one knee, pulled a wire snare from her pouch, and motioned Nix over. He crouched beside her, fascinated as she secured it between two rocks, baited with a pungent piece of dried root. Minutes later, the creature returned. The trap snapped closed. Alyssa retrieved the twitching body, held it up. Watch. With practiced hands, she gutted and cleaned the animal, noting organ color, odor, texture. Zira scanned it for toxins. Clean, she confirmed. High protein. Trace minerals. No neural agents. Nix looked stunned. You just know this stuff? I learned the hard way. Alyssa skewered the meat, set a small fire with jungle bark, and started roasting. The smell was oddly pleasant, spicy, earthy. The three sat around the flame, the heat pushing back the damp air. Zira watched the fire. How long did you survive alone before Concord recruited you? Too long, Alyssa said. Earth taught me how to improvise. Concord taught me how to sit in meetings. Nix reached for the skewer but hesitated. Alyssa offered the first bite to Zira. She studied it for a beat, then took it. Chewed. Swallowed. No reaction, she said. Slightly bitter, but tolerable. Nix followed, then Alyssa. They finished the meal in silence, not from lack of conversation, but from relief. When they returned, the outpost felt different. The alien crew eyed them with suspicion, envy, and something else, interest. Praxer stood by the mess hall, arms folded. You led an unsanctioned foraging expedition, he said as they passed. We returned fed, unharmed, and with data, Zira replied evenly. I didn't authorize it. You didn't stop it, Alyssa said. He didn't respond. That night, the crew gathered in hushed pockets. Rumors spread, the human had found food. The medic supported her. The jungle wasn't off limits anymore. A young crew member, Dreen, approached Alyssa after lights out. He was thin, trembling, and trying not to look desperate. I found fruit, he whispered. Small yellow pods. Smelled sweet. I couldn't wait anymore. Alyssa's stomach sank. Where? South edge of the dome. She bolted toward the med bay. Zira was already there. Dreen lay on the cot, convulsing. His eyes were unfocused, mouth foaming. Alyssa grabbed her pouch, pulling out the fireleaf bark. Same toxin, she muttered. Neuroagent. We treat it with this. She ground the bark, mixed it with distilled water, and poured it into Dreen's mouth. Moments passed. Then, his spasms slowed. His breath eased. Zira ran a scanner. Stabilized. Just in time. Alyssa stood back, wiping her hands. You're becoming quite the field medic, Zira said. No choice. Praxer entered, silent as a shadow. What happened? Fruit poisoning, Zira answered. Sergeant Granger neutralized it. Again. Praxer's gaze lingered on the boy, then on Alyssa. He said nothing. By dawn, 3 more crew members stood outside the mess hall, waiting for Alyssa. One of them, a reptilian researcher named Toll, spoke first. "We want to learn," he said. "If you'll teach us." Alyssa looked them over. Thin. Shaky. Scared. "You sure?" They nodded. She tossed a blade to Toll. "Lesson 1, the jungle doesn't wait." The jungle sounded wrong. Not the usual drone of insects or the mechanical chorus of nocturnal life, this was silence. A deep, pulsing hush that smothered the outpost like a held breath. Alyssa Granger stood near the sensor grid, rifle slung low, scanning the trees with narrowed eyes. Something was out there. And it was close. Motion pinged on the perimeter display. She raised her weapon, flicked the safety off, and stepped into the dark. Behind her, the outpost doors hissed open. "Sergeant!" Nix called, panting, panic in his throat. Something just took toll. He was outside checking water levels. He screamed and then, gone. Alyssa moved fast. "Alert Zira. Lock down the airlock. No one else steps outside." She vanished into the mist. They found Toll's boot first, stripped of flesh, stained with blood, crushed like a toy under something heavy. The trail led deeper into the forest. Claw marks gouged into bark. Branches cracked under something far heavier than a human. Alyssa crouched low, running her fingers over a fresh print in the mud. Too big for a predator they'd catalogued. Too deliberate. Whatever had taken toll wasn't hunting for food. It was testing them. Behind her, Nix hovered, his skin pale and rigid. "We should go back." "No," Alyssa said quietly. "We follow this now, or it comes to us again tomorrow." A growl answered her from the shadows. Low. Rumbling. Near. She turned and shoved Nix to the ground as a blur of muscle and scale exploded from the brush. Her rifle barked, once, twice, blue plasma rounds slicing the air. The creature screamed and vanished back into the trees. A hit. Not fatal. Back to base, Alyssa snapped. Now. Inside, Zira treated Nix's arm, scraped but not broken. The crew gathered silently, staring at the blood on Alyssa's uniform, the tension in her jaw. Even Praxer watched without a word. "We are not alone out here," Alyssa said flatly. "Something intelligent enough to test our perimeter is watching us. It won't stop." Praxer's voice was calm, clipped. "Then we reinforce the outpost. Increase shielding. Stay inside. That's exactly what it wants. We sit still, it picks us off one by one." "And what do you propose?" Alyssa stepped to the center of the room. She pulled out a small data pad, activated a crude 3D terrain map. 2 days east of here is an old Concord emergency beacon, buried during early survey missions. It's still intact, but without power. Zira leaned forward. "We could reroute energy from our backups. If we reach it." "If we reach it," Alyssa echoed. "The terrain is rough. Predators, deep forest, acid bogs. But it's our only chance." Praxer folded his arms. "We are scientists, not soldiers. This is not a military op." "No," she said. "It's a survival op. You stay here, you die. Simple." The room went silent. Alyssa scanned their faces, hollow cheeks, darting eyes. They were scared. But more than that, they were starving. Zira stood. "I'll go." Nix followed. "Me too." Others hesitated, then nodded. 5, then 7. Praxer didn't move. Alyssa faced him. "You coming?" He met her gaze, silent. "Finally, I will stay." Someone must hold order here. Then hold it, she said. But don't expect it to hold you. They left at dawn. Alyssa, Zira, Nix, and 5 others. Armed with salvaged weapons, machetes, packs full of fireleaf bark, snares, and nutrient paste. The jungle welcomed them like a mouth opening wide. They moved fast. Alyssa led through dense underbrush, following instinct, and map fragments burned into her mind. When the trail vanished, she cut new ones. When the ground soured to swamp, she found roots solid enough to walk. They crossed a vine bridge over a chasm too deep to see the bottom. Nix nearly slipped, catching himself with a terrified yelp. Hold tight, Alyssa said without turning. Look ahead, not down. By midday, the humidity was unbearable. Insects the size of fists hovered in the air, clicking. One landed on a crewman's shoulder and pierced his suit. Zira pulled it free and crushed it. Keep moving, she said. They're scouts. They reached a clearing to rest. Alyssa passed around boiled roots and dried meat. No one spoke while eating. Survival had replaced conversation. That night, they built a fire under a canopy of giant ferns. Nix sat beside Alyssa, chewing on a root. You always like this? He asked. What? Bossy? Prepared. She shrugged. You survive enough bad days, you stop expecting good ones. He looked at the fire. I used to think humans were reckless. Now I think you're just adapted to chaos. We didn't get to space by playing it safe. The final leg was the worst. A sudden storm rolled in, rain pounding like bullets. Mudslides tore through the terrain. They lost 2 packs and almost lost Zira crossing a flooded stream. Then the predator came again. This time it was faster. Smarter. It struck from the trees, knocking 2 crew members down. Alyssa opened fire, hitting it in the side. It roared and vanished again. Blood streaked across the foliage. Alyssa tracked it by the trail. Then she saw it, bleeding, cornered, watching her with strange yellow eyes. It didn't run. It studied her. And for a brief moment, she recognized it wasn't hunting anymore. It was defending something. She lowered her weapon. You're not the only thing out of place here, she whispered. It limped away. She returned to the group. We're close, she said. No more stops. By nightfall, the beacon tower emerged through the trees, battered, moss-covered, half buried in vines. Alyssa collapsed at its base, breathing hard. We made it. Zira was already pulling open the access panel, sparks dancing from corroded wires. Alyssa handed her a power cell from her belt. Make it sing. She did. The beacon lit up, cast a blue cone of light into the dark sky, blinking in rhythmic pulses. Signal sent. The team sat around it, soaked, wounded, exhausted, but alive. Nix looked up at the stars, then at Alyssa. Think they'll come? She smiled faintly. They will. And when they do, we're not the story. The story is how we didn't wait to be saved. The rescue signal blinked like a heartbeat against the storm-dark sky. Alyssa Granger sat beneath the old beacon, knife in hand, whittling a branch into something vaguely resembling a spear. Around her, the crew rested in makeshift shelters of ferns and vine, steam rising from their soaked clothing as the storm finally receded. No one spoke much. They were past the point of small talk, beyond pretense. What mattered now was that they'd made it. Zira emerged from the base of the beacon tower, her med kit slung across her shoulder and boots caked in black mud. Signals stable. Batteries holding. We're broadcasting clean. Alyssa nodded. Good. That gives us a chance. Zira sat beside her, wiping sweat from her brow. Still no transmission? Not yet. They both looked up. The sky had cleared, revealing the swirl of distant stars. Somewhere up there, Concorde Command still spun comfortably in orbit, fat with supplies and backup plans. Down here, survival had been an improvisation. At first light, they began the trek back toward the outpost. The jungle, for once, didn't resist. No more predator attacks. No rain. No sudden tremors or territorial beasts. It was as if the forest itself had recognized the change. Alyssa led the group in silence, one eye always scanning for threats. The rest followed her without question. It took them a day and a half to return. When they stepped out of the trees and saw the battered metal walls of Outpost Theta 7 rising in the clearing, someone behind her let out a sound between a laugh and a sob. They were home. Sort of. Praxer Ven stood at the airlock as they approached, tall and rigid. But something in his posture had shifted. No arrogance. No detachment. Just tension and waiting. The door opened without a word. Inside, it was quieter than before, emptier. The crew who had stayed behind were thinner, weaker. The food stores had run out entirely. They looked at the returning party like ghosts had stepped through the gate. Zira moved immediately to the med bay with the injured. Alyssa stayed back. She met Praxer's gaze across the mess hall. He approached, slower than usual, hands at his sides. "You returned," he said finally. Alyssa didn't blink. "We sent the signal. The beacon's live. We're visible now." "In the jungle?" "Still hungry," she said. "But not the worst thing out there." Praxer studied her. His voice was quieter this time. "We lost 2 more while you were gone. 1 from fever. 1 stopped eating." "I'm sorry," she said. "You were right," he added after a long pause. "We waited. You acted. They survived because of you." Alyssa didn't smile. "You did what you were trained to do." "It wasn't enough." "No. It wasn't." His jaw tightened. "I've requested command review. I will be stepping down when we return." She didn't gloat. Didn't need to. His acknowledgement was enough. "Then what?" she asked. "You should lead them." 2 days later, the sky cracked open with the roar of descending engines. The rescue ship came low, kicking up a spiral of dust and debris. It settled outside the perimeter, ramps lowering, medical teams spilling out with supplies, stretchers, hydration kits. The Concorde officials arrived with scanners and questions, datapads flashing. Alyssa stood at the center of it all, arms crossed, waiting for them to start asking what took them so long. A high-ranking officer, a silver-skinned Aetheri, approached her, expression unreadable. "We received your beacon signal," he said. "We weren't sure anyone would survive this long. The solar storm scrambled most of our long-range tracking." "We survived," Alyssa replied. "Barely." He looked around. "You kept them alive?" She nodded. "Protocol says local life is not to be consumed under any condition without full testing." She stared at him. "Protocol doesn't feed people." He tilted his head slightly, then gestured to the ship. "We'd like you to return with us. Debrief, of course. And there's interest in your methods." "My methods?" "Concorde Command believes your survival knowledge could benefit other exploratory teams. Field training. Emergency response. They're calling it the Granger Protocol." She raised an eyebrow. "Catchy. Effective." As the last of the crew boarded, Alyssa stood at the edge of the ramp, looking back at the jungle. The trees swayed gently, unthreatening now. The predator hadn't returned. Maybe it had understood the boundary. Maybe it had simply lost interest. Nix joined her, cleaned up and fed, though still wearing jungle scratches like medals. "Are we really leaving this place?" "For now," she said. "Think they'll learn something from all this?" Alyssa watched the treetops. "Depends on how hungry they get." He laughed. "I'm going to miss your cooking." She glanced at him. "You didn't even like it." "No," Nix admitted. "But I liked surviving." They boarded the ship. The ramp closed behind them. Later, as the vessel rose above Sarin Delta IV, Alyssa sat by the viewport, watching the planet shrink below. Clouds swirled over green continents and dark blue seas. Somewhere in that jungle, the beacon still pulsed. She didn't feel heroic. She felt tired. But also satisfied. A voice crackled over the ship's internal comms. "Sergeant Granger, report to briefing. Command wants to speak to you personally." She stood, stretched, and headed toward the bridge. As she passed the mess bay, a group of crew members paused, nodding with quiet respect. She nodded back. Zira leaned out of a med bay doorway as she passed. "They're saying humans are chaos wrapped in skin," she said. Alyssa smiled. "They're not wrong. And still, the only one who knew what to eat." Final line. Alyssa entered the briefing room and dropped into a chair without ceremony. "Well," she said, "let's talk about what to do when the rations run out."